are sitting on a financial lever right now that you have never pulled once in your life. Not because it is complicated, not because it is hidden behind some velvet rope reserved for rich people, but because the bank handed you a manual with one page missing, and you never noticed the page was gone. I have watched people obsess over their credit score for years, downloading apps, checking the number every single week like it is a stock ticker. Refreshing, refreshing, refreshing. And not one of those people knew what was actually controlling that number. Here is the trap. You think you are being graded on whether you paid your bill. You are not. You are being graded on what your balance looked like on one specific day of the month that nobody ever told you about. And there is a 99% chance you have been failing that test every single month while believing you were passing it. That ends today. My name is Jack. I run VHT Invests. I have spent the last decade watching financially responsible people get quietly punished by a system they thought they understood. People with money in the bank, people who pay their bills on time, people who have never missed a payment in their lives. Walking around with credit scores 40, 50, 60 points lower than they deserve. Not because they did anything wrong, but because they never learned the one mechanic that actually moves the number. I have seen this mistake destroy mortgage applications. I have seen it cost people hundreds of thousands of dollars in higher interest rates over the life of a home loan. And every single time, the person sitting across from me says the same thing. But I always pay on time. I do not understand. I understand. That is why we are here. This video is not about credit card tricks. This is about learning how the machine actually works, so you can stop being processed by it and start running it yourself. Here is the new mental model. Write this down. Your credit score is not a report card. It is a surveillance photograph. The credit bureau is not watching a live feed of your finances. It is not monitoring your bank account in real time. It is not impressed that you paid your bill the moment it arrived. The bureau receives one photograph per month. One single frozen image of your financial life. And that photograph is taken on a date that has nothing to do with when your payment is due. Think of it like this. You are a soldier in the field. You are keeping your position clean. You are doing the work every single day. But the general only ever sees one aerial photograph of your position. And that photograph is always taken on the one day you had supplies stacked everywhere waiting to be sorted. The general does not know you cleaned it up the next morning. The general sees chaos. The general marks you as disorganized. You are not disorganized. You are just letting the enemy choose when the shutter clicks. The statement date hack is about taking control of the camera. Nothing more, nothing less. Let me show you how insulting this math actually is. You have a credit card with a $5,000 limit. You spend $2,000 on something legitimate. You have the cash sitting in your checking account right now. You wait for the bill. The bill arrives. You pay every single cent. You pay zero interest. You did everything right. And yet the credit bureau received a photograph showing $2,000 of debt on a $5,000 limit. That is 40% utilization. The algorithm sees 40% and immediately classifies you as a risk profile. Your score drops 25 points. Now run the same scenario with one small change. 3 days before your statement closes, you log in and you pay $1,990 manually. The statement generates showing a balance of $10. $10. The bureau receives a photograph showing essentially zero utilization. Your score goes up or holds at its ceiling. The difference between those two outcomes is a single manual bank transfer made 3 days earlier than you would have made it anyway. That is it. That is the entire secret. You are not spending less money. You are not changing your lifestyle by a single dollar. You are moving the same payment by 72 hours. The math is not complex. The math is insulting. And you have been leaving points on the table every single month because nobody told you the photograph existed. Here is what actually kills me about this. And I want you to sit with this for a moment. You already know something feels wrong. You have always known. You check your score after a big purchase and it dropped. You feel a flash of panic. Then you tell yourself it is fine because you paid the bill. You rationalize it. The system must be glitchy. It will bounce back. Credit scores fluctuate. That is normal. You are lying to yourself. And the lie is comfortable because the truth requires you to admit that you have been managing your credit based on an incomplete understanding for years. Maybe a decade, maybe longer. I see this every single day. Smart people, educated people, people who manage budgets at work, who negotiate contracts, who run teams, completely passive when it comes to the one number that determines their access to capital. Why? Because admitting ignorance on money feels like admitting failure as an adult. So instead of learning the mechanic, you outsource your score to an algorithm you do not understand, and you hope it treats you fairly. It will not. Algorithms do not do favors. Algorithms execute rules. And right now, the rules are working against you because you never read them. Stop defending your ignorance with your payment history. Your payment history is one piece. You are ignoring 30% of the entire equation and calling yourself responsible. Let me show you what this actually costs over time. And I want you to feel the weight of this number. A credit score in the 740 range versus a score in the 800 range sounds like a minor cosmetic difference. It sounds like bragging rights. It is not bragging rights. When you apply for a 30-year mortgage on a $400,000 home, that 60-point gap translates into a meaningfully higher interest rate. We are talking roughly 0.5 to 1% higher, depending on the lender and the market. On a $400,000 mortgage over 30 years, 1% of interest rate difference costs you approximately $83,000 in additional interest payments. $83,000. Paid slowly, quietly, month after month, because you did not move a bank transfer by 72 hours once a month. That is not a rounding error. That is a car. That is a child's college tuition. That is a decade of retirement contributions. Incinerated in slow motion on the altar of not knowing one date on your billing statement. And here is the part that should make your stomach turn. You were not reckless. You were not irresponsible. You were simply operating with a missing page in the manual. The bank is not going to hand you that page voluntarily. That page costs them $83,000 every time someone reads it. Here is the piece that nobody in personal finance talks about. And this is the part that separates the people who use this knowledge strategically from the people who just use it defensively. Utilization has no memory. Every other negative mark on your credit report leaves a scar. A missed payment sits on your report for 7 years. A bankruptcy follows you for 10. A hard inquiry ghosts you for 2 years. These marks age slowly. They haunt you. Utilization is different. Utilization is memoryless. The moment a new balance is reported to the bureau, the old one ceases to exist in the scoring calculation. If you were sitting at 90% utilization in January and your score was buried in a ditch, but you pay it down to 5% before the February statement closes, your score bounces back as if the 90% never happened. This means utilization is the only fast lever in your entire credit profile. Payment history takes years to build. Length of credit takes decades. Hard inquiries take 2 years to fade, but utilization. You can correct a utilization problem in 30 days or less. That is an asset, a real deployable asset. It means that 60 to 90 days before a major loan application, you have the ability to engineer your credit score upward with nothing but timing and a manual bank transfer. You are not fixing a permanent wound. You are correcting a current data point, and it corrects completely. Most people treat their credit score like the weather, something that happens to them. This is a tool you can pick up and use on a specific date for a specific purpose. Use it that way. I want to talk about what this actually means in the real world, not the abstract world of credit scores and FICO models. The real world where decisions get made. When you walk into a lender's office, you are not walking in as a person. You are walking in as a 3-digit number. That number determines whether the person across the desk treats you like a sophisticated borrower or a liability they need to manage. It determines your interest rate, your loan terms, your negotiating position, and ultimately how much of your own income you keep versus how much you hand over to the bank over the next 30 years. I have spent the last decade watching people negotiate from a position of weakness they created for themselves entirely by accident. They had the income, they had the assets, they had the clean payment history, but they walked in with a score 60 points below, where it should have been because they let the algorithm photograph them on their worst day of the month. And lenders do not ask why. They do not want the context. They see the number and they price accordingly. Your credit score is not a vanity metric. It is your financial credibility score. It is the number the world uses to decide how much your word is worth when you make a promise to repay. Manage it like it matters. Because every time you let that number drift downward out of ignorance or passivity, you are handing leverage to the other side of the table. Do not walk into the most important financial negotiation of your life having left 60 points on the floor. Here is the contrarian take, and I mean this. Most people in the financial content space will tell you that caring about your credit score is shallow, that true wealth means you do not need credit, that the goal is to accumulate enough cash to buy everything outright and never borrow again. That philosophy sounds liberating. It is actually a fantasy that keeps people passive. Real financial freedom is not freedom from the system. It is freedom within the system. It is knowing the rules well enough that the system serves you instead of processing you. The person who understands utilization mechanics is not more enslaved to the credit system than the person who ignores it. They are less, because they can access capital on their terms, at their price, on their timeline. I have spent the last decade watching people confuse ignorance with independence. Refusing to learn the rules of a system you are already inside is not freedom. It is surrender with extra steps. You are still subject to the algorithm. You are just subject to it blindly. The statement date is not a loophole for people who love credit cards. It is a basic operational mechanic that every adult who participates in the financial system deserves to know. Understanding it does not chain you to debt. It gives you a switch on the wall of a room you were already standing in. Flip the switch. Here is your direct instruction. No ambiguity. This week, you are going to open the app for every credit card you own. You are not looking for the due date. Everyone knows the due date. You are looking for the statement closing date. Go to the Statements tab. Open a past bill. Find the line that says billing cycle ends or next closing date. Write that date down for every single card. Then set a calendar reminder 2 to 3 days before each of those closing dates. Every single month recurring. When that reminder fires, log in. Look at your current balance. Pay it down to roughly 1% of your limit, or a nominal $10 to $20 amount on your primary active card. Pay everything else to zero. Let the statement generate. Then pay the remaining small balance before the due date. Pay zero interest. Report near zero utilization. Watch your score move. Do this for one card for 1 month. 1 month. Come back to this video and tell me in the comments exactly how many points moved and in which direction. You are not extracting a loophole. You are reclaiming information that was always yours. The bank kept one page out of the manual. You just found it. Stop letting the algorithm photograph you on your worst day. That is all. VHT Invests. I will see you in the next one.